Good morning, good people of the internet. I am Stephen Edholm from skillcult.com, and today we are talking about splitting axe cut wood with an axe. Now I get questions about this all the time, and the reason is that this right here is everyone's frame of reference. A saw cut stump that's flat on both ends with saw cut wood that's flat on both ends, set up on a stump and hit with an axe or maul. Not only do we not need this concept at all to split wood with an axe, but there are actually some advantages to just ditching it altogether. So the objective today is to talk about splitting axe cut wood with methods that will keep you and your axe safe and be effective. So those three things, safety of you, safety of your axe, and effectiveness, don't always come together ideally. It's a trade-off. There's always some compromise and interplay between those things. I'll also tell you why I think it may actually be easier to split axe cut wood than saw cut wood, and you can give me your feedback on that. And by the end of this video, this is going to be entirely irrelevant. We do not need this concept at all, like zero, gone. We have a pile of wood here. I cut this wood, this fir tree specifically, with a lot of knots. I got a tree that had knots almost all the way to the ground. It's fairly small diameter, obviously, but this is about the size of what I prefer to be processing with an axe. A little bit bigger than this is fine, but if you get up to a certain point, it starts to become less efficient. But I chose this tree on purpose because it does have all these knots, and I didn't want it to be too easy. One of the reasons is that you get comments a lot. I know there's people out there already thinking these thoughts right now. You get comments a lot on anything about splitting wood with an axe where it's always like, oh, well, you couldn't do that with the wood at my house, or you couldn't do that with this species or that species. But the funny thing is that people kind of use that as a reason or excuse to just discount the entire practice at all. And that's a mistake, because it can be incredibly effective and easy and also very fun. It just doesn't work for everything, and that's okay. You know, I mean, not with any machine except the most powerful splitter are you going to be able to, you know, hydraulic splitter, you're able to just throw anything in there and have it just crushed to smithereens. That's just a reality. But if you don't try, and you don't persist, and you don't spend a lot of time and think out the process and figure it out and, you know, develop strategy, develop your aim, develop your technique, then you're not going to know what is possible. I have to say that since doing my cordwood challenge for 2 years, where I split, you know, both of my cords, I cut a cord last year and a cord this year, I have hardly split anything at all with a maul. I think I remember splitting a few pieces last year, none this year. Not only that, but this year all I used was this 2 1/4 pound boy's axe, or lighter. Like you can see videos of me using the Husqvarna forest axe, which is like 1 3/4 pound head, very light. And I have to say that, you know, just persisting and getting better and better at it, I've just been really surprised at what's possible. There are also places where it's going to be less efficient, but there are also places where it's going to be more efficient. If you get really good at it and you have straight grained wood laying in a pile like this, you can blaze your way through it. It's remarkable how fast and easy it is. And you're rarely going to be, you know, picking stuff up. You don't have to lift it all the way up to put it on a stump. Then it falls off and you pick it up again and all that crap. Okay, so first we're going to talk about some strategy and theory just a little bit, because that's actually very important. You can't just walk up and start hitting stuff. And you don't have to necessarily make a full study of every piece of wood, as we'll see. But you do want to, you know, as soon as you look at a piece of wood, you should be, if you're going to split it, you should be starting to almost unconsciously read that piece of wood and what's going on inside it. That's what you really want to be able to do, is you want to kind of have this X-ray, sorry, it's deer flies, they bite. If you want to kind of have this X-ray vision thing going, where you look at the piece of wood and you can kind of visualize what's going on inside of there. So we're going to talk about that first. Okay, let's take a look at this piece of wood. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's another one here hidden, 6, 7, 8, 9 visible knots. There could be more inside, probably small and maybe not that relevant, but this has a lot of knots. Where do they go and what does this look like inside? Okay, there's a knot right here. There's another knot right here, which pretty much almost overlaps all of these. There's a knot here. There's a knot right here along this ridge. There's a knot here. There's a knot here. And you know, that's most of them right there. That's the ones I can really see well. Now we want to look at what these knots have in common. What do these knots have in common? Chances are they all go all the way to the center of the tree, but none of them go past the middle. That means that if we can hit the middle, we basically have a somewhat clear path where we're not cutting through a knot. Now that requires some explaining. So this is a fir knot, and this is really what they look like inside. They're tapered to a point in this kind of like tooth shape. So let's say I'm the grain of the wood and I'm growing around this knot. Well, on either side of the knot, this wood doesn't go like this and mesh together. There's actually a clean line. You know, we have a line between the long fibers of the wood that comes here, and then there's a distinct crossroads here where it divides and goes around the knot. So if we split this way, even right on the knot, we could theoretically find the place where the fibers divide and come right down and hit the middle of this knot. And in some species, you can actually split the knot in half pretty easy. Now, if we come this way, again, remember my fingers are like the fibers of the wood, right? So they're growing up this way, up and down the tree. But if we come this way and we split these fibers apart, we can still split these fibers apart, but then we hit this. And this has fibers running in this direction, so we're no longer splitting. You cannot split through this. You can cut it, you can break it by just pure force, but you cannot split it. So you see the problem here. If I hit this here, I can start splitting it, but these two knots back here about 6 inches and 10 inches back here are gonna stop that split dead. Now I may be able to like break the knot or tear the wood away from the knot, even tear the knot out, but I can't split through it. If I hit this dead center, then I have a chance to travel all the way through without hitting any knots at all. Now, if I have a piece of wood that just has no knots, or has no knots, let's say on one side, this looks fairly clear, or they're very small knots and they'll just break really easy, then I can hit it over here off center and just split off a slab, and that's okay. But if it has a bunch of knots, I really need to hit it in the center. And sometimes the difference between hitting it literally like a ½ inch off and right on is the difference between it doing almost nothing and just popping in half. Not always that drastic, but you'll find that it actually is that drastic sometimes. So with this piece, I'm looking at it and I don't see anything except a few small knots. None of them are probably even a ½ inch in diameter. I don't really need to worry about it too much. I'm going to aim for the center, but if I miss the center, there's still a good chance that I'm going to pop something off. With this one, not a chance. You know, I need to hit this really close to the center at least. Now the other thing that we're dealing with is that when the grain hits a knot, the grain is wrapping around the knot like that. And that just introduces more friction and, you know, it complicates and contorts the pathway that you're splitting down. So when I come up to a piece of wood, I'm going to look for this right here. You know, here's a space right here that's, you know, 4 or 5 inches wide with no knots. And if I can hit that in the center, I'm going to have a clearer, straighter path through here without this wonkiness. And we're just going to go through here and split this and do the best we can with what we have, which is a very small light axe, 2 1/4 pound head on a 28-inch handle. And also, very interestingly, I split all of my wood with whatever I'm chopping with. Now this axe in particular is ground very thin. I took the file and I went from right here at the eye and I filed this completely flat to within about 1/8 inch of the edge. I've sharpened it some now so the bevel is a little bit wider than 1/8 of an inch. Anyway, the point is that this is ground very thin. It sticks really easily. So that's just another point that I'm making here, is that you can use your chopping axe and whatever you have. Now to me, what I'm interested in is what I can do with one axe. This interests me a great deal. So because of that, I've persisted using these axes and it works, okay? Is there some issues with that? Yeah, I mean, ideally you would choose an axe that has a little bit fatter bit. Ow, things are biting my ass. Okay, I really want to get moving here because these things are biting me. Yeah, you can totally do it. Is it the best thing? No, obviously not. But there's things we can do to make this work, and it actually works surprisingly well if you just stick with it. And again, how do you find that out? You just do it. You know, take whatever you got, take the axe that you cut wood with and chop wood with and all that, and just use it. And it's going to force you to have to refine your technique and strategy to the point where, you know, you can make this thing work. So in the Axe book by Dudley Cookie, he says something to the effect of, if you didn't have to be careful about yourself, hurting yourself or damaging your axe, that, you know, something like much is possible. That's great. It's such a great quote. Whatever the actual quote is, it's a great quote because it's so true. You're going to be tempted to stand where it's most comfortable. You're going to be tempted to just hit the thing as hard as you can because you can, but you can't. You have to humble yourself in axe work in general and constantly adapt and read every situation. You're going to have to move all the time. Like, you'll see me moving my body around all the time and getting into safer positions. You're going to have to swing from very awkward positions that you know, you're sacrificing some of your power. You're also going to have to moderate the power of your swings. You know, you're not always going to be able to hit it as hard as you want or as hard as you can. So there's a lot of adapting that's going on, and that's really a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today. And I just figured there's no better way to do that than just to have a pile of wood that I'm splitting in front of you, and it just brings up talking points constantly. So there's definitely more than one way to skin this cat, and it's hard to pinpoint everything down to like this is safe and this isn't safe. So I'm just going to give you my opinion and where I'm at in my evolution with this whole process. That's about the best I can do. You're going to have to eventually make this whole process your own in some way. I'm just going to try to give you a safe place or safer place to start with. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to clear the area, which I've already done. If I see any big rocks like this, those are out of here. Still rocks in here, but you know, I'm just going to try not to hit the ground. I've also cleared out branches. Like this is no good, we don't want that, because that could catch the axe. We're going to be working low to the ground. I've also looked overhead and cleared all the branches overhead. There's nothing in the way. Even if pieces get rolled out, you know, further away, like over here or behind me, there's still nothing above me that's going to get me, and that's a real problem. As you'll see, some of the stuff might go flying out somewhere, and you're going to follow it and try to split it. So if you're in the woods and there's low-hanging limbs and stuff like that, then that becomes a problem real quick. I'm going to start with just the pile the way it is, and anything that I can hit without hurting my axe or hurting myself and I think I can split, I'm just going to hit it. Like this, for instance. There's no knots in it at all. So done, right? Throw it in the... Same with this piece here, very short. Now what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to stand right here and hit it, but I can get out of the way here and hit it. Now Dudley Cook in his book, he'll say, you know, make it a challenge not to touch any piece of wood with your hands, but I don't know that that's a great idea. I wouldn't be so dogmatic about it, because that would get you into trouble. Okay, so this piece is end up to me, and I can hit it like this, but if I hit it really hard and drive straight down, I could hit the ground. So what I'm going to do is, as I hit it, I'm going to kick my axe to the side, and that'll keep it from driving through to the ground. So I can put this here and it's supported on a piece of wood, so that means I can drive the axe straight through and it's not going to hit the ground, right? But if I'm standing here, then this is a problem if I hit it in an arc. But what you can do is you can aim the direction of your blow in a certain direction. I'm going to come like this and push the axe down. So if it glances, it's going to go like this or like that. I'm aiming for the middle. There's a knot right here, there's a knot right there, and I'm going to swing at this here, and then I'm going to kind of pop my axe sideways. Okay, another thing is, when you're aiming for ends like this, you want to be careful of where you're at. Suffice to say that you should ideally be in front of your target, right? because it's very unlikely that this is going to glance and come straight at a 90-degree angle and hit you. Very, very unlikely. Because axe cut wood is sloped like this, it's more dangerous. Like, let's say, well, I'm going to pop this and then we'll talk more about that. But for now, I'm going to stand basically even with this and swing this way. I missed the center by quite a bit and there's some big knots here, so I could invert this and slam it, which I'm going to do anyway, just to show you, but it's very unlikely to split because this crack has to travel over into the middle, which it looks like it might be trying to do, and then go down because these knots are in the way. But I'm going to do this anyway. But you can see here what I'm talking about, right? Look at how this is sloped, and this happens all the time. And this one's pointed, which makes it even worse. I'll show you, it's easier on like a chisel-shaped one. So if I'm going like this, look at that. So yeah, I need to get, you know, out in front of this thing. Yeah, I hit the same spot. You'll find when you try to do this that hitting the exact center of a piece of wood while standing like that is really difficult. What I'm going to do is not fight that anymore, but I'm going to come like more down like this and try to meet that crack. And to do that, I'm putting it up on a log so I don't stick it in the dirt. I can stand here as long as I aim my blow down. It's not going to be quite as powerful. It would really be more powerful if I probably went like this, but it's okay. That's about through right there, just one more. Done. Let's do some more easy ones first. If we look at this piece, it's a little bit more of a chisel shape. Now, if I want to split this in half, the first thing I'm going to do is read where the knots are. So there's a knot here and a knot there. And that means really I'm kind of best off splitting it right about here through the piece this way. In this case, because this chisel is like that. So if you have to strike into, the best place to hit a piece happens to be with this line, obviously that's more dangerous for glancing. So if you can, choose a clear path through the wood that doesn't have knots this way on a chisel ended shape like this, and not like this where it could glance off really easy. This piece doesn't really need to be split, but I'm going to split it anyway. Did you hear that pop? A lot of that was because I twisted the axe right at the end. You will find that if you're simultaneously trying to hit you know, about a 1/4 inch spot right here, and right when you hit it twist your axe, that is actually pretty difficult. Persist, and you may be surprised at how much easier it gets. Okay, so now we're getting into some knotty fur, and like I said, I cut this piece on purpose because it was going to be challenging. And here's a situation where I've got 1, 2, 3 big knots and a small knot on this side, and then I have a knot over here. So ideally it'd be better for me to go split it here, but I have this chisel end right there. There's a little bit less chisel on this end. It's more flat, so it's less likely to glance off, so I'm going to hit it right about here. I don't have high hopes for it just popping in half, but and again, I want to steer right through this line between that knot and this knot. And that was 3/4 of an inch off. That's way too far off when you're dealing with knots like this. You have to really get close to the middle. Damn it, did it again. Now I'm to the other side. Okay, that was more in the middle, and it definitely went further, but it's still pretty tough. I'm going to set this up and come at it from the side. So this is the other kind of major technique, and you'll see people using like a fork in a log like this. It sort of cradles it, like where there's a fork in a tree, and that's really cool, but you don't need it. And in the field, you're often not going to have access to anything like that. If you really need to, you can just take one of your, damn, that is knotty. Take one of your pieces and cut like a notch in it. But honestly, I rarely resort to anything like that. And I wouldn't have here, except I was just thinking I should demonstrate it. Okay, this is also very effective. You want to make sure that the piece you're hitting is backed up by something like this. It can also be on the ground, but obviously you risk going into the ground. I have it backed up on here, and I also don't want to hit it way out at the tip, especially if it's sticking out. You don't want to get this teeter-totter effect where it's like a teeter-totter and you hit it here and it bounces up. If nothing else, it'll steal your power. But I'm just going to line up with that crack that I already hit. There we go. Now you could ask, well, wouldn't it have been better to just do that in the first place since it was so easy? It may have been, but a lot of times when you're dealing with a pile like this, it pays to just hit it on the end at least once to see what it's going to do. You know, it just takes a minute to just walk up to something and slam it, and often that's going to weaken it. You know, I had already weakened it and given it a crack, so it split really easy. Here's another easy one. I'm just going to go with the whack it in the center. Maybe not as easy as it looks. Of course, I didn't hit it in the center. Is so often the case. There we go. So that's in half. If I just slam that, it's going to pop in half. See if we can pick up a little steam here. Damn, this fur is so pitchy. It just gets all over my hands and they're like sticking to the handle and stuff. Okay, let's talk for a second about keeping your axe safe. It's often very tempting, and it's also very effective to just whack stuff, you know. Here it is on the ground. I don't want to touch it. It's pitchy. And sometimes I just want to give it that one finishing blow right on the ground. And since I don't want to hurt myself, let's say, you know, I'm standing right here, but I just really want to hit this, then I can aim my axe and push it downward like I talked about instead of sweeping it this way, which is going to put me in danger. It's always tempting because you're like, well, if I just don't hit it quite hard enough, or if I give it a little pop like this, it keeps it from traveling into the dirt and helps split it open. And I'm not going to tell you not to do that because you actually can get away with it a lot, but it is like a certain percentage of the time your axe is going to end up in the dirt. And usually that's not a big deal. You know, a 5-minute sharpening or a 10-minute sharpening will bring it back where you want it. The other major thing, well, I'm just going to do that. See? So I just moderated the force that I use. Yes, I could have split it easily in one blow. I pretty much did. But, you know, my axe would have ended up in the dirt. You're going to get your axe stuck, especially if you're using your chopping axe and not like a fat-bitted splitting axe. It's going to get stuck really deep. I didn't expect that to split so easy. Let's see if we can get this stuck. When it does, keep your pulls in line this way and not bend the handle to the side back and forth. That's how I actually cracked the wood inside here. Like the wood in this eye is cracked. The handle is super wobbly because the wood inside there is really weak. And that's because I stuck it in a log once, but the log, it was stuck sideways like this. And I lifted it up and stomped on the log at the same time, and it twisted like this and it bent my handle sideways. So the wood is very, very weak in this direction. I don't know if you can see, but there's like, it's this piece of hickory, this handle is really weak, and it's been like this for a long time. I've been using it, but you know, I have good techniques, so I haven't messed it up anymore. Okay, this is the piece I drew on with charcoal, and the cleanest line to split it through is right here. So I'm just going to set that up. If you're going to swing this way, make sure you can hit your target. If you're going to swing in an arc that kind of like comes towards your feet, if it's well backed and you're sure you can hit your target, and you're just aim at this or even more horizontal towards the ground. or vertical rather. Okay, between the knots, it just works better for me to step over here to the side, make sure I'm, you know, even with this or in front of it, because look at this. You know, what if I do that? I want to be well away from that. Okay, so what I'm doing here is that I have a lot of confidence that I can hit somewhere in this 6-inch space, and even though I'm standing here, I'm going to hit it. But I know that it's already cracked and I don't need that much power. Is it the smartest thing? It's just a thing, you know. I mean, I can make it work without hurting myself, so I'm doing it. Should you do it? Well, I'm not going to say whether you should or not. Do it when you're sure you can do it, and not before. Okay, I missed the center there, so I went right into this knot. There's a knot here. It goes from this point right like that. So there's just no way. You know, that should have split really easy if I just hit it in the right place. It'd probably be easier to put it leaning against a block, but it's here and it's laying right there, and I have an axe in my hand and I'm standing here, so I'm going to try to hit it. Again, pretty far off, but let's just give it a slam. Alright, fine, be that way. There we go. All about hitting the center. The difference between hitting the center and not hitting the center is absolutely shocking sometimes. Okay, what else we got here? I think what I'd just love to do is if I had another pile of wood, I would just run through that pile and just split it and leave the camera on and not talk. At least not too much. So with this one, I've got like a whole bunch of knots here. 1, 2, 3. There's basically a big whorl of knots. There's another one there. There could easily be one hidden in here. It's also easier to split from the top of the tree, so the skinny end of the wood, which this is probably the top. It gets fatter this way. Yeah, I'm just going to whack it and see what happens, because I don't really know. Probably the safest way to do this, or the most sure way, would be to put this on a block like this and hit it right here. But again, you know, I want to know, I'm just going to hit it because I'm here and the axe is here and it's in my hand. Whoa, it's heavy. Okay, and I'm like way off the center again. And I hit the same spot again. See, look at that. You see the difference? This was 3/4 of an inch off, maybe an inch off, versus hitting it in the middle. Night and day. It's night and day. Just don't work on your aim, just split a lot of wood and try to hit it in the middle, and that'll take care of itself. Okay, second hit in the middle, and it took it most of the way through. Again, it's going to be tempting to do this. Go for it, you know, if you want. Don't baby your axe too much. See how soft I hit it though? Here's something else you can do is, if you've already split it in half this way, and it's basically split in half, then if I come and quarter it this way, I am unlikely to go through both pieces because they're not attached anymore. So it's probably going to go through and it's going to hit that piece of wood. So you can use that as a safe chopping platform. It's like its own chopping platform. Let's see if we can just pop that. And again, some woods will split easily right through the knots if you aim just right, like oak. This oak splits great through the knots, but the fir, no. Does not split well through the knots. Why? I have no idea. Not a clue. If anyone knows, you can tell me. There's a size limit, you know. Once you get into stuff much bigger than this, it depends on the wood. Like if I get a straight, clean piece of fir that's not too knotty, I could take a 6-foot log like this and split it with this boy's axe by just, persistently hitting it in the middle and then following that split down. But more than likely, when you get into a certain size of round, you're going to want to start thinking about using something bigger, or using wedges, or at least using your axe as a wedge, where you hit that, slam that in there, and then just whack on it with something. More likely you'll do that and then use that as a way to get some wooden wedges in there and drive them. And it's not, it's not a big deal to just whack out a couple of wooden wedges from some branches to use temporarily, or you can carry metal wedges. So this one I'm just gonna, again, do that method. That's good, I hit it right in the middle, but I wasn't using full force. You could just hit it again, or maybe I'll turn it over. Oh, there's a big knot over here too. Again, I'm kind of like moderating my force because I feel a little uncomfortable about this whole wobbly thing and the dirt and my feet. But we'll get through it. No problem. It's just this knot right here. It's basically trying to go right around or right through that knot. See, right there. Otherwise, there's no reason this shouldn't just pop open. Okay, I can use this for tanning. Who'd have thought that this little stick would be the one to give me trouble? It's that knot though. It actually tried to split the knot in half for whatever reason. I guess this was where I hit it. Alright, see what we can do with this piece. A little off center there. Got it. Again, moderating my force. I didn't hit it as hard as I could. I don't want it to go in the ground. I don't want it to go on my leg. Oops. So bottom line is you're constantly reading all this to keep you and your axe safe and actually, get the thing to split in half. Lots of compromises. You have to embrace that. It's just part of the deal. It's going to feel really awkward for a while as you're kind of walking around figuring out where to stand and stuff, but you'll just get faster and faster, and having strategies that work, you don't have to think about them too much. And if anybody has any other tips or tips for me regarding any of that, that's what the comments are for. All right, that's about it. That doesn't need to be split. You hear that? You hear that sound? Oh yeah! I love that sound. That sound. The sound of wood exploding in half. Not only do you not need all that stuff, it's quicker. It's funner. It's better. Okay, so as you can see, we don't need splitting blocks, you don't need sawn ends at all. In fact, it's almost easier to just, it is really in a lot of cases, to just walk around and hit stuff. The other thing about using a block is that you're raising the wood up. Like where I want to hit a piece of wood to get the maximum amount of power is on the ground between my feet. You know, that's where, if I'm standing right here and I swing like this, like that, you know, like I'm bucking or something, this is where I get the most power because I have all this distance to generate velocity and snap. Now if I put a piece this high and I swing at that, well, I've just maybe taken a little bit of that power away because I don't have as long to generate that snap. Then if I take another piece and I stack that on top of the first one, suddenly I'm way up here. Imagine trying to chop something this high and generating enough force, downward force, to split that. I mean, you know, like if say it was this high, you can imagine how difficult that would be. It'd be terrible. So the more you drop it, the more force you can get and the more mechanical advantage you can get out, you know, the more advantage you can get out of the axe in terms of like the mechanical advantage of that arcing swing like this. The other problem is that it becomes very dangerous because you're standing here and you're hitting something up here, and if that folds or moves, the axe can come down and keep going and hit you. You can do the same thing where you swing and you push the axe downward, but it steals a lot of your power, and it steals even more power the higher the block is. Also, you get this jackknife effect where, say this is a round on top of a block and you hit it like this, and if you're swinging in an arc, then it can fold this way and come down and nail you in the knee or something like that. And that happens to people all the time, and that's why people splitting on top of blocks will use that technique, and they talk about it, where you swing and then you push the axe downward in a vertical motion towards the ground. Well, that does work to keep you safe, and I just recommended that you use it. But wherever you can not have to use it, great, because you're going to generate more power if you can use an arcing swing, because that increases the acceleration of the head from this point to that point. And the more you're pushing the axe instead, the more you're just using your hands like this to push. And that's pretty weak. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you why I think axe cut wood splits easier. You know, I would hit a piece of like that's sawn off flat with a saw and then be splitting stuff that was chopped. And I was like, damn, it seems like it splits easier. What's up with that? And at first I was like, I just doubted myself. I was like, no, I don't think so. But now I think it does. And this is why I think so. So imagine that this piece is still intact and it's cut with an axe, it's bucked, so it has this chisel edge. Well, when you're splitting, a lot of the battle is just getting the split started and starting to separate the wood, like that first initial blow that starts the wood separating. So when you have a cut like this, I think that just happens way easier than if you have a flat cut. I'm just pushing apart like this pointed, ridged piece of wood and popping just this little space open, versus a flat piece of wood. I'm really trying to split across the whole flat just to get the split started. I hope that makes sense. I'll try to explain it sometime with a model or something. If you're coming at it this way into the chisel end, it just starts the split really easy, and then it continues it more easily and pops it open, because that's the first part of the battle in splitting any piece of wood, is that. And you'll notice, like if you're splitting a big round of wood, like a big sawn round, like sometimes a maul will just keep bouncing off, and then eventually you start to get that way in, you get a little bit of a crack. Well, with this, I get that crack like right away, really fast, and it goes pretty deep. So often the piece will just kind of, you know, pop open really easy.